Hey everybody, today we're going to be making bread. Yay! Emerson sent this recipe and it looks amazing. I've seen pictures of his final product, so we're hopefully gonna make it the same way here. Now, I'm not as good at making bread. I've never made bread really that well before, so this is gonna be a new experience. So we're gonna trial and error. I might fail at this, but that's all right. We're gonna try anyways.
I know it can be a daunting recipe, so we're hoping to make it as simple as possible. I think the main thing is to not overthink it too much. It's just another recipe, even though baking can be a little more touchy. This one is pretty simple and doesn't require much kneading, and certainly we'll see in the different kind of pans that we bake with. We may see some differences just because using something like a Dutch oven can make for a tastier loaf, just by way of kind of creating more steam on the inside than not using that wood. Just a couple notes about the recipe. You can make it in a cast iron, like a Dutch oven. You can make it on a baking stone. You can make it on a cookie sheet. It's not going to turn out quite as tasty on a cookie sheet as if you use some of the other things. And you can use a loaf pan. So you have a lot of options.
So I'm gonna show you all the stuff that I have ready for today. All right. We have our bowl, we have water, we have our all-purpose bleach flour, we have some yeast, and a teaspoon, a half a teaspoon, a half a cup, and some salt. All right, we have our sea salt, our active dry yeast, a cup and a half of water, flour, and a bowl, as well as our measuring cup, sorry. Half a cup and half a teaspoon because I don't have the full ones on me or they're not clean right now. All right, so first we're going to mix together the yeast into the water and the salt. 2 teaspoons of yeast and 2 teaspoons of salt and a cup and a half of water. All right, now that we got our yeast mixed up with our salt, I'm going to add in the all-purpose flour.
Scrape across, because if you shake it or tap on it, the flour will pack in and it'll actually be more than you want for the recipe.
Or if you have a way to weigh it. I'm not sure what that weight translates to, but we can hopefully write that in the bottom here where I don't know. Thanks. This calls for 3 1/4 cups of flour.
So this is pretty well set. As you can see, there's no spots that are kind of overly wet or overly dry.
All right, everybody, we mixed up all the flour and the yeast, and now we covered it, and we're ready for it to sit overnight until we're ready to bake it in the morning.
It can be ready in as soon as 2 hours after you let this rise, but it tastes a lot better the longer that you wait. So you can, I think the sweet spot is anywhere from like 12 to 18 hours.
All right, fingers crossed that it raises and we did this right. We'll see you in the morning, and we'll hopefully get to taste test it too. All right, bye for now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We have the bread. It has risen. It has been sitting out for about 13 hours, and now we're going to finish up with the next steps. This is the step where we flour the surface of the counter and of the bread, and then I'm going to fold it down into the 4 sides from the top. And I'll have this filmed. I think I'm gonna do it right. I'm not sure, I've never done it before, so we're gonna try this again as well. So far, so good. And after this, then we'll be able to throw it in the Dutch oven and get it cooking.
It's looking pretty happy. It's risen a lot. Yours probably won't rise this much because I have a double batch, so there was double the quantity. So you can kind of just scrape around the edge. Lightly dust. So maybe I will just toss the whole thing and then chop it in half. Dust the top a little bit as well. And you're just going to start kind of pulling the edges up. Just pull up each side and kind of fold on top, and do that 4 times around. And then if you can kind of see what I'm doing here, just tuck the edges in as you twist it, and that will kind of seal it up like a little loaf. So one last little shape. As you can see, it's a pretty nice little ball, and I'm just gonna plop that one into my loaf pan and finish shaping the second one. Kind of tightly tug it, as you can see, so that it all seals up under the bottom. And then we're gonna give it a little more time to rise too, so that'll end up kind of sealing up the bottom even more. So once you feel like it's a nice round loaf, you can pluck it up and plop it on some parchment if you're going to use a sheet or a baking stone or a Dutch oven. Now we just let it rise for 20 minutes.
I'm not sure if I did that right, but now we're gonna let this bread rise for 20 minutes. Then I'm gonna preheat the oven to, I think it's 425 or 450. We'll put that in here. And then after that rises to the full 40 minutes, then we'll put it in the oven. The dough has sat for about 40 minutes now. The oven is preheated. The Dutch oven is preheated with the oven. And now I'm going to put the dough inside the Dutch oven on some parchment paper that I have here. There we go, that's the dough. It hasn't risen much, so I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but we're gonna find out.
I also want to dust the surface of the loaf just a little bit. That's what gives it that kind of nice look. Often I'll dust it a little bit, gently kind of smooth that out, and then dust a little more. If you were doing it on a baking stone or just a cooking sheet, baking sheet, it's going to take a little bit less time. One tip, if you're doing like a stone or just a baking sheet, since it's not going to get kind of the same steam that a Dutch oven does that helps it really taste good, you can put another pan below it while this was preheating, and then pour some water in once that pan is really hot, and then you close the oven really quickly, and then that'll create that same steam that you get from a Dutch oven.
The first portion of the bread cooking is done. It's been about 45 minutes in the oven, so now I'm going to take the lid off and I'm going to show you. There's the dinger. Okay. All right. Put that back in, get a little golden brown top there. So it's looking like it didn't rise that much. We're going to still see how it turns out after this next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll do a taste test and we'll report back after that.
It looks like for a loaf pan, 40 minutes was just perfect. If you can see that there. That one's ready to go. I'm going to put that on a cooling rack and resist the urge to cut into it right away, because it'll kind of compress more than you want it to if you don't let it cool before you chop. So I just took the Dutch oven loaf out. It was right at 10 minutes baking with the top off after that 45 minutes with the top on. It looks just about perfect. You can see the tops are just getting a little bit on the golden brown side and the rest is golden. So we're good to go. We just have to let these cool off and we can take a slice and taste test, but it smells pretty good. So
my bread turned out a little dense. It didn't rise quite as much as I wanted it to, but it's going to taste delicious, and I'm excited for you all to try it and to hear how yours turns out. All right. Thanks so much for joining. Let us know how it goes. All right, here we are. This is the final product. The bread turned out fine. I got some butter on it and some nutritional yeast. It turned out more than fine, actually. It's delicious. It's fluffier than I expected, even though it didn't rise as much. And it's not as dense inside also. The shell is pretty firm and crispy, which is great. It's got some great flavor, and here we go.
I hope you all have enjoyed this cooking demo. I hope you're trying it at home. Keep an eye out for future cooking demos. We'll let you know when we have kits to join in those as well if you're interested to pick up at the center. So thank you all. I hope you enjoy your bread baking experience.